If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to our deep dive. This time you've sent us not articles or reports, but a collection of internet search terms. It's really unique.
Oh, wow.
And it seems like you're all interested in the information surrounding a presidential inauguration, specifically President Trump's.
Okay.
And the actions he took on that first day in office.
I see.
So we'll try to sift through it all and highlight the most noteworthy points.
Yeah, these search terms are fascinating. They're almost like a time capsule. You can really see the public's raw curiosity and concerns during a time of immense change.
It is fascinating. The dominant theme that emerges is executive orders.
Oh, really?
What Trump signed, when he signed them, and what they meant for the country. Trump Executive Orders 2025, Executive Orders Trump, even what executive orders is Trump signing?
Wow. So it seems people were really anticipating those initial moves from the very beginning.
Right out of the gate.
Absolutely. And executive orders come directly from the president.
Yeah.
So they often signal the immediate priorities of the new administration, which is why they tend to draw so much attention during transitions of power.
And people weren't just searching for general information about executive orders. They were searching for specifics.
Okay.
We see things like Trump child support law.
Interesting.
And Trump immigration.
Yeah.
So it seems like there was concern over how these orders could directly impact their lives.
That makes sense, especially on some of the most contentious issues.
Yeah.
Right. And those searches really echo some of the key themes of Trump's campaign. It seems like the public was eager to see how his promises would translate into concrete actions.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is worth noting that executive orders aren't all powerful. Historically, they faced legal challenges, and it's possible we could even see Congress pushing back against certain orders.
Oh, okay.
Potentially leading to some political showdowns.
Interesting. So we've got this focus on the policy side of things, but there's also a cluster of searches related to the inauguration itself. The time, the location, details about the swearing-in ceremony.
Oh, really?
Trump inauguration live, inauguration daytime. What time does Trump get sworn in? I mean, you'd think in the age of instant information, people would already know all that, right?
It's true. Even with the internet, those formal rituals still hold a certain fascination. You know, they represent a symbolic transfer of power. It's a moment etched in history.
And it wasn't just calendars and clocks people were relying on. They were also turning to various news sources. We can see searches for specific outlets like CNN, MSNBC, AP News,
Right.
and even NPR.
This actually highlights a really interesting point. The increasingly fragmented media landscape. People have more choices than ever before in terms of where they get their news. And this can be both a good and a bad thing.
How so?
Well, having diverse sources is valuable, but it also raises questions about potential biases and echo chambers.
Okay.
And with so much information flying around, it's more important than ever to think critically and consider multiple perspectives.
Absolutely. And speaking of a lot of information, there's a real sense of urgency conveyed in some of these searches. Trump Live. What did Trump sign today? Executive order signed today?
Oh, wow.
CN Live.
Yeah, it's like everyone was glued to their screens waiting for real-time updates.
Yeah.
That's very characteristic of our modern news cycle. The demand for instant information, fueled by social media and the 24/7 news cycle. People wanted to know what was happening minute by minute, especially with the rapid nature of executive orders. It's fascinating, right? Those searches for live updates. It shows how people weren't just passively taking in the information.
Right.
They wanted to engage, to really understand what was happening and what it all meant.
Yeah. It wasn't just about knowing that Trump was signing those executive orders. It was what they said and how they would affect things. We even see searches like, what has Trump done so far? List of Trump executive orders, Trump.executive orders 2025. Clearly, people were digging deeper, going way beyond just the headlines.
And that's where things get really interesting when we analyze all this. Looking at the specific language in these searches, we see patterns. They oddly give us a peek into what the public was anxious about and what their priorities were.
Oh, okay.
Like those repeated searches for Trump child support law and Donald Trump child support law. This tells us that this specific policy area was generating a lot of buzz.
Certain topics were definitely lighting up those search bars, like immigration, too. A lot of activity around that. We see Trump immigration, immigration news, even Trump deportation.
Exactly. There was a lot of worry about potential changes there.
Uh-huh.
These search terms, they're like a barometer of public sentiment. They show not just what was on people's minds, but also how much concern or even maybe anticipation there was around certain issues.
It really is remarkable how much these searches capture a snapshot of the public's mindset during this big historical moment.
And remember, this was just day one. Can you imagine the whirlwind of information and speculation in the following days and weeks?
It's almost overwhelming to think about. Doing this deep dive really makes you appreciate how information shapes our understanding of these events, the way we look for it, the way we get it.
Absolutely. It's a crucial point. This look into the digital landscape surrounding Trump's inauguration shows how technology has completely changed the way we deal with these political transitions.
It's interesting to see the variety of news sources people were using, too. We see big names like CNN and MSNBC, but also searches for the Associated Press, NPR, even more niche outlets like Newsmax and The Hill.
That's a great observation. It shows the increasingly fragmented media landscape we have to navigate these days. People have more choices than ever before when it comes to news. That comes with opportunities and challenges.
I guess on the one hand, it's great to have so many different viewpoints.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's hard to sift through it all, figure out what's reliable.
Exactly. Especially in those early, uncertain days of a new presidency,
Uh-huh.
we have to remember that every news source has its own slant, its own way of presenting things. Being aware of those potential biases is so important if you want to be informed.
So it sounds like to really understand what Trump did on his inauguration day, we need to go beyond the headlines, dig into the context.
Absolutely. These search terms, they're a fascinating starting point,
Yeah.
but they're just the tip of the iceberg. If we really want to grasp the impact of those early executive orders, we need to look at the policy details, the potential legal challenges, and the long-term consequences.
And we can't forget about the broader political landscape, what Congress thinks, what the courts do, how the public reacts.
Yeah.
It's complicated, a real web of all these different forces. But I guess if we examine each piece, we can get a better understanding of this moment in history.
And we can maybe even get some insight into how information, technology, and political power have been changing in the years since.
It's amazing, just from these simple searches, we've had such a complex and deep conversations. Like we've peeled back history, uncovered all these hopes and anxieties.
It's the power of a deep dive. We have to go beyond just the surface. We need to consider why people were looking for information. What were their concerns during those crucial moments?
One thing that stands out to me is the anticipation, but also the uncertainty. You can see it in these searches. People were ready for the Trump era, that's for sure, but there was definitely apprehension about what it might mean.
That's pretty normal with any change in presidents, especially when a different party takes over. People are always curious about the new direction, but with that comes the anxiety of the unknown.
And that anxiety comes out in different ways. Some people are glued to the news, refreshing constantly. Others try to dig deep, analyze, and make sense of everything.
Right. You can see it all in the search terms.
Uh-huh.
For instance, we see what are executive orders, and do executive orders have to be approved by Congress? This shows us people were trying to understand how the government works, the limits of presidential power.
And then there are searches like Trump's speech today and Trump's inauguration speech 2025. It's more traditional, like they wanted to hear his vision, straight from him.
It's a good reminder that even with instant information, social media, all that, those formal speeches still matter. They still have meaning.
So we've got this mix of old and new, tradition, disruption, hope, anxiety. It's a lot to process, all happening on this one day.
It is, and that's why we have to look at these historical events critically. Consider all sides. Dig deeper for the real meaning.
By understanding those initial reactions, the questions people had in the first hours of Trump's presidency, maybe we can better understand what his term was all about.
That's a great thought. Maybe these search terms, they're like breadcrumbs through history, helping us to see the bigger picture.
Well, we've covered a lot today. I hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for information, for how the public thinks and feels, and of course, the fascination with presidential transitions.
It's been great exploring these sources with you. And remember, this is just the beginning. Keep asking questions, keep digging, and I'm sure you'll find even more.